Welcome back to another episode of Topic of Discussion. I am your host, Miles Berry. And without further introduction, let's get right into it, okay? Today's topic is titled Temptation. Again, the topic for today is titled Temptation. So, let's understand what temptation is, right? I'm going to read a couple definitions. One, the desire to do something, especially something wrong or unwise. A thing or course of action that attracts or tempts someone. One more definition, the act of tempting or the state of being tempted, especially to evil, right? Again, the desire to do something, especially something wrong or unwise, right? So most of the time, we always understand temptation for the most part. We all have a sense of temptation, right? So now, what I want to talk about today is recognizing temptation and also seeing the signs of temptation and not basically putting us in that position to even begin with when we can walk another way or we can be led down another path. You know what I'm saying? And examples of temptation are being tempted to do something wrong, right? Pornography is a temptation. Um, a temptation to follow trends. There's so many different temptations. Like they range. It's not like a okay, this is a really good sensation, this is a really bad sensation. They just all range and they all vary. But at the same time, they all fit under the description of a temptation, right? Um, so another temptation can be lying, cheating, an alcohol addiction, um, a weed addiction, um, again, I already mentioned pornography and then feeling that jealous feeling or feeling that feeling after you watch it when it sits on your conscience and you like, I know that was wrong. But you want to feed into your soul or feed into that at the same time. But at the same time, when you finish it or after you finish doing everything, you feel a certain way about it, right? Because it doesn't sit right in your conscience because you know what you were supposed to do, but you failed to do that. So now you feel a certain type of way, right? And that goes into other temptations as well. Because when it's like when you know better, you should do better, right? So when you know better and you don't do better, it sits on your conscience, correct? Like a lot of times when we know we shouldn't do something and we do it anyway, we always have this like it's a feeling, and it kind of sits on our conscience in the sense of like I know I shouldn't have done this, but maybe I did it. Maybe I got away with it. Um, Whatever the case is, but it sits on your conscience and you just know like, I shouldn't have done that. Or maybe karma's gonna catch up to me. You know what I'm saying? So today we're speaking about temptation and we're speaking about the signs of temptation and also how to prevent temptation, right? So and just speaking on that last part of preventing temptation, we always can't prevent it because sometimes when people come up to us with opportunities or bad opportunities or when things happen in our life, we always can't just stop temptation from coming around us. But it's how we handle the situation, how we respond. And just like I was just saying, when we know better, we do better, right? We should. So let me think of a great example. Okay. So let's just feed into an alcohol addiction, right? So an alcohol addiction is when someone is drinking too much alcohol. They're consuming too much alcohol and they might be getting drunk. It might be affecting their household. It might be affecting their relationship with their kids, their spouse, their other family members, their work. And now it's becoming a problem, right? And so now they're considered alcoholic, correct? So at what point at what point do you stop feeding your temptation? Because your temptation is, okay, I don't know how I feel or I'm losing myself again, so let me go feed into my temptation, which is him or her in that situation, an alcoholic. So whatever the case is, however they feel when they don't know, they're in their mind, I have to go drink and that's going to solve my problems, right? And everybody knows when you go feed into alcohol, weed, whatever the case is, to feed into your problems or to feel like that's going to solve your problems, that's not what it does. It prolongs your problems, it numbs your problems, but at the same time, you're going to have to face your problems at some point, right? So if you keep doing that over and over and over and over and over again, like an alcoholic would or someone that's has addiction in other forms, right? You're numbing your pain over a certain amount of time that at some point you're gonna have to face reality again. So you're just prolonging when you're gonna have to face reality, because you're gonna have to face the same situation at some point, but you're just prolonging it. And that's the same thing with being tempted to do these things over and over again. And let's just go to another temptation. Another temptation is maybe you're married, right? And you feel like, okay, well, this is a very pretty woman. She was flirting with me, or vice versa. A guy was flirting with you, and you're a woman, right? So a guy was flirting with you, and you just feel like, I'm married, right? I am married, but at the same time, I slick want to feed into this temptation that I want to talk to him. Maybe you feel like he looks better than your husband. Maybe you feel like the connection that y'all have, that y'all are sharing in that moment, is better than your husband. Maybe you and your husband haven't been getting along, but at the same time you're still with your husband. But at the same time you like this energy that this other gentleman is giving you, right? So one, you can feed into the temptation of, okay, my relationship at home is not going well, so if I just do this in the moment, yeah, it can't hurt anything, right? In the back of your mind, that's why you always get that feeling before you do something, when you like know, okay, this might not be right, right? So when you have that feeling, you have like what, like 2 3 maybe 5 seconds to decide, am I going to feed into this temptation, or am I going to beat this temptation and let it go, right? So some of us have a problem to feeding into the negativity, to feeding into the temptation, right? And once we feed into that temptation, it's hard to get out of it. It's hard to recover once we commit, right? So once we commit and we feed into that temptation, now now after that temptation is done, or after we fulfill our needs, we kind of, it sits on our conscience, right? So today I just want to speak on how we beat temptation, right? How we conquer temptation. How when temptation comes, because it's always going to come throughout your life, how do we beat temptation, right? How do we not feed into temptation? So even though that we might know better, sometimes we have a lack of doing better. But again, still we might know better, but when temptation hits, sometimes we have a lack of doing better. So today, your mind has to beat all of this, right? Your body and everything, because sometimes your body can be telling you one thing and your mind is telling you another. Your mind is telling you, listen, you don't like this person. Maybe let's go back to the woman with the guy that came up to her or whatever. So her body could be telling her, I want this man. You know what I mean? I want him. My body's feeling good. He's making me feel a certain type of way. He's turning me on. But her mind is saying, you have a husband at home that loves you, that caters to you. And just because y'all are going through a little rough patch right now, y'all can get through it. So don't feed into this temptation from your body, making you feel like, okay, well, I'm turned on and I want to feed into this temptation. Because her mind is telling her, remember, you have a husband that loves you. You don't know this man, but her body is saying, I'm turned on right now, right? So now you have to choose between, okay, my mind or my body, my mind or my body. And sometimes we let our body win over our mind. Does that make sense? Sometimes we let our body win over our mind and we feed into the temptation of our body. And most of the times, our body is going to feed into the temptation of our desires. And what I mean by our desires are like, what do we want? What are we lusting for? What do we want in the moment? She could be like, I love my husband at home, right? But at the same time, in this moment, I'm not happy with him. In the same time, I'm turned on with this man. So my body is lusting for him and not lusting for my husband at home. So I might want to feed into this temptation of my body, right? For this gentleman, instead of feeding into my mind that's telling me I have a husband, and don't feed into this temptation of this gentleman, right? So we have to recognize things. You have to recognize when the temptation is coming. Most of the time when we have temptation, we recognize it, but at the same time, we tend to, not all the time, but sometimes we tend to make the wrong decision, right? And just going even past that, let's give another example. Friends can tempt you. Close people, family members can tempt you to go down the wrong direction in life, right? Feeling like they know what's best for you. and they can lead you down and make your mind and feel like you're making the decision that's best for you, but it's really the decision that's best for them. So they're tempting you to make the decision, but at the same time, it doesn't matter who's close to you, how close they are to you. You have to make sure that you're making the best decision for yourself, because temptation is always not a lust. It's not always like a right or wrong, but it can be a temptation that can lead you down the wrong path. So it doesn't always have to be negative where it's like, okay, this is going to kill me. This is going to make me lust for this person. But at the same time, it can still be tempted by someone close to you to make you go down the wrong path. So you still have to recognize things. You have to be in tune with yourself. That's why that we say all the time, take care of your body, take care of your mind, take care of your soul. Because when hard times come, that's what you need to rely on: your mind, your body, your soul. What have you been feeding your body, your mind, your soul over the course of your years? Right? What have you been feeding your body, your mind, and your soul over the course of the years? Because that's what's going to take care of you. That's what you need to rely on to make your decisions. Not your body, but your mind, your soul. Your mind and your soul. And when I was saying body before, I wasn't talking about your private parts, okay? Because you can think with your private parts. That's not what I'm talking about. Just your body, your mind, and your soul, right? So, what have you been feeding that? What have you been feeding that over the course of the years? What have you been seeking? Have you been seeking better relationships? Have you been seeking a better relationship with God? Have you been seeking good friendships? Have you been speaking good relationships, a good spouse? What have you been seeking in your life? Because the things that you feed into yourself are is how you're going to see the world. That's going to become your perspective of the world. So what you feed into yourself is going to become your perspective of the world. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? I hope this is making sense, because I'm trying to make sure it makes sense to me as well. So if you feed your soul a negative perspective, negative energy, everything that you see out and your view of the world is going to be negative and negative energy, because that's all you've been feeding yourself, right? But if you feed yourself positivity, good thoughts, not be led by temptation when you view the world, even though it's filled with temptation and filled with negativity, you won't see it as such, and you won't be led down the path as easily to be tempted, because you're in tune with yourself and your perspective of the world. Does that make sense? So at the same time, temptation can be very difficult to deal with, but you have to fight temptation. You have to beat temptation. And I'm not saying it's easy, depending on what you're dealing with. Sometimes we have constant battles. This is like a daily battle that we have. We might be tempted every day, or we might lose to temptation every single day. But at the same time, you have to continue to face it. You have to continue, okay, I'm not going to let it do me tomorrow. I'm not going to let it continue to beat me down. I'm not going to continue to do this on a daily basis, right? At some point, you got to change. You got to. But I understand temptation can be a very hard thing to get over, to move on from. But at the same time, you have to keep telling yourself, okay, maybe I failed again today, but I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it. And you're gonna have to want to change. You're gonna have to want to do better. Again, like anything in life, nobody's gonna hand you that opportunity. Nobody's gonna just hand you success. You're gonna have to work for it. Even if you have a better opportunity at it than someone else, you're still gonna have to work for it, right? So somebody's not gonna hand you a better opportunity to be led out of temptation. You have to do it for yourself. Remember, what you feed your body, your mind, and your soul. What are you feeding into yourself? So if you're feeding lust, if you're feeding cheating, if you're feeding lying, if you're feeding being an alcoholic, if you're feeding being addicted, what do how that's destroying your body, your mind, and your soul, right? That's destroying your insides, right? And all these things can alter your mind. All these things can alter your perspective, and all these things can alter the way that you feel. So you have to take account for all these things when you do these things, right? There are repercussions to your actions, right? So it's just, do you want good repercussions or do you want bad repercussions? And the choice is yours. Let's not be tempted today. And if we are dealing with temptations, I pray to God that He leads us down the paths and shows us a path that we can walk down, that we can stray away from our temptation. Because we're all dealing with different temptations. We all been tempted before if we're not dealing with temptation. So we all can just understand the power of temptations. And I just pray to God that He takes control of this and He guides us in a direction that can be led away from it and shows us a different way. And every time that we do it, it sits more and more on our conscience of how bad it makes us feel, how terrible it makes us feel, so we can continue to change and continue to want better and do better. Again, when you know better, you do better. So if you know it's not right, why aren't you doing better? Why do you continuously make the same mistake if you know it's not right? And I know it's part of temptation, but we got to change. So that's why I'm praying to God and just telling Him that for all the ones that want to change and that are trying to change, that are still dealing with temptation, I just pray that you just show them a way. Show them a way to be led from the temptation. Even if they're trying to, it's difficult. I just pray that you show us another way to, for us to, because we're in control, we have free will. So for us to go a different way about it and to not be led by temptation anymore and have a different perspective on how we view things. And I just pray for all of our freedom in our mind. We break the chains in our mind, the the bars behind our mind, right? Right? Because a lot of us are free in the world. We're freedom. We have freedom. We're not locked behind bars, but our mind are locked behind bars. So I just want to pray for everybody's mental freedom. Everybody's mental freedom. So I hope you guys got something out of today. The topic for today was temptation. And I'll be back for another episode tomorrow. Hope you guys learned something again. This is your host, Miles Berry. Topic of discussion. We out.